Hello everyone, hello. Just while we're setting up my slides, I'll just give you a little bit of context. The last time I did this was in a pub about the 10th the size of this room, and everyone was very close and intimate, so now I feel like I'm giving a bit of like an Oscar speech, which it isn't going to be like that. It's pretty simple, so I'm pretty sure most of you are over here, so I'll direct my voice in that way. But yeah, as you can see, my name's Chris, and I'm a lead UX UI designer. I've just started at Made by Pi, the digital agency in North Leeds. And tonight I'll be talking to you about Agile for designers. A little while ago, this is the second time I've given this talk. The last time was at Forefront Leeds, about 4 months ago, I think. Before that, I put out a little survey just on Twitter to a few designers, developers that I knew, and they passed it around as well. Just to find out who, as a designer, was doing Agile, because the majority of designers I spoke to, some of them knew what it was but didn't use it, some of them just didn't have a clue what it was. So the questions you can see here, really simple, 2 questions: are you a designer, and if so, what type? Thankfully, 92% were web-based designers, because don't really care about graphic designs at this stage. So there you can see UX designers, UI designers. I've classed a web designer as someone who does both of those things, and a multidisciplinary designer as someone who just does a bit of everything. Although designers don't like being put in categories, for this purpose I had to do that, so I apologise. And the second question was, do you work Agile? There are quite positive outcomes here, and I was really pleased with them. So basically the top 3, the first 2 are Agile methods. The third one down is, yes, I work Agile, but I use my own method, or I use a different method to the ones you've asked about. And the bottom 2 are, no, I know what it is, but I don't use it, or I just don't know what it is. Why are you asking me this stupid question? So, as you can see there, 46% of web-based designers use Agile, and 54% don't. Now, I only asked 100 people, so if you put a bit of variance in there, this is my conclusion. 50% of web-based designers don't use Agile, regardless of whether they know what it is and don't use it, or just don't know what it is. Which is strange, really, because Agile is all about an iterative process, and so is design. And as Mark Bolton said just earlier this year, design is a naturally iterative process. We make things and we fix them as we go along, which really means that all design is Agile anyway, so why aren't more people putting the process into place? I'll just go back a little bit if anyone doesn't know what Agile is, just to explain it. And this is a really simple way, so anyone who doesn't know what it is will probably understand it, and the people that do know what it is will probably hate me for putting it in this way. But basically, I think it was about 10 or 12 years ago, software developers came together in the mountains in America and said, we don't like the way that we're currently working, which is Waterfall. We want to work in a better process and put better products out for the users. Now, a Waterfall process, pretty much, this is the simplest way you could put it. You start off in a sort of discover phase. You do some research, talk to users, talk to the people who are going to use the product, the stakeholders of the product. You do a bit of planning, design, you do some build, and at the end, review. Now, that process can take 6 months to, who knows what number of months, it could take 2 years. And at the end of it, you show the stakeholders your product, and they all go, well, this isn't what we wanted, because you've not shown them anything all the way through the process. So it's a complete waste of, 6 months to 2 years. Agile could be described in this way, where you take smaller slots that are probably a week to 3 weeks long, and you go through the process every time. So you go through the discovery, the research, you do a bit of planning, design, build, and review. And after 2 weeks, you go back to the stakeholders or the client and say, this is what we've built so far, are we on the right lines? And either go no, in which case you've wasted 2 to 3 weeks, not 2 years, or they go, yeah, you're on the right lines, carry on, and then you carry on going through the process. So you can already see how it fits within design in general and, in particular, web design and development. From that conversation they had saying they didn't want to use Waterfall, came Agile, and then from then on, other people have added their own flavour into it, and the 2 main ones are now called Scrum and Kanban. Now, Scrum is, the 2 methods are quite different, even though they're both called Agile. With Scrum, you essentially split your organisation up into small teams called Scrum teams. You split your work up into smaller tickets or user stories, and you split your time up into 1 to 2 weeks. And as you go along, you optimize the process by doing retrospectives, what went well, what went badly, and just reviewing the process as you go along. Kanban is slightly different, where you actually visualize the workflow on what's called a swim lane board, which will start off at to do, then you'll go through it into design, into development, approve, done, ship. And you limit the work that's in progress. So the designers or developers will go along, see the tickets, pick up the last one that's on the board, work through it, and they will say, we only work on 5 tickets at a time because there's 3 designers or developers. And of the time that you're doing it, you measure how long it takes, so that in the next one, you might be able to take up a few more tickets, or you might have to say, no, we can only do a few less. But as Luke Klum here says, software development isn't web design, and the Agile method isn't necessarily a solid template that should be applied to the design process. Agile is great, but the way that it's done at the moment is purely for software development and, in a few cases, large-scale web development. Which brings me nicely onto Agile Design and what that is. And it's all about how designers can work Agile. So whether it's within a development team or separate of a development team, purely just doing design by themselves, how can they pick up what is probably natural to them but put a process and a method to it so that they can say that they work with agility? And it's all about getting back to the basics. As I said before, you should really sit down, find out where you are, do some user research, do some planning, do some discovering. You take a small step towards your goal, which might be, this is the color palette I was considering using. This was the navigation style I think we should use based on user research. And you take it back to the client, you take it back to the stakeholder, and you basically adjust your understanding based on the learnings that you've come out of. So, real simple terms, you might say, I want to use blue for this website, take it back to the client, and they might say, this is not what we want. This is completely opposite of what we want. We want you to use red, for example. So you go back and you just repeat the process using red. So it basically, along the way, you just find out a little bit more from the client, which is very difficult to do sometimes. You speak to a client in a workshop and it's hard to get information out of them. So you go through this much shorter process and refine as you go along. It's all about change. It's all about changing the way that you work. It's about the minimum viable product favored over the pixel perfect design. So you're not sat there working for weeks on end in Photoshop coming up with a fantastic design that you think is really going to work, because that's just Waterfall. You're just going to give it back to them and they'll say, we don't like blue, or we don't like this, or the user journey is completely broken, it's not what we wanted. And it's also about working in the browser, which again for designers is quite hard, and I have to admit, I still don't do it. Mainly because in Photoshop I can come up with a design for like a whole website in about an hour, whereas working in the browser doing the same way would take me a week. So at the moment there's no point doing it. There's software out there called like Macaw, or I think it's Adobe Reform, which kind of work with design and development in hand. You can try those, but again there's a steep learning curve, and if you're time bound they're quite difficult to use. And there's some challenges that come along with this, and it's all about communication. You need to be in constant communication, not just with your work colleagues or workmates or other designers. You have to be in constant communication with the stakeholders of the project, whether that's internal or client-based stakeholders. You need to get that communication down initially, straight away. You need to explain to them that this is the way that you're going to work, and that they need to be in constant communication with you as well. It's not all just about you talking to them. And it's also important that you don't just end up doing waterfall in iterations, where every 2 weeks you just sat by your desk doing some work, and at the end of it they go, no, well it's still not right, go back to the drawing board. That's not the point. You still have to go through the Agile process. And it's always, letting go is always scary, especially for a designer. To say, look at this design I've done after 2 days instead of 2 weeks is hard, because it's not going to be finished, but you do need that general feedback. That's the whole point of working in an Agile way. And apologies to Joel here, but I can't actually say this guy's first name, so I'll just call him Mr. Bowles. He says here, Agile does allow us to still do the things that we hold dear, which is research, develop a vision, and test and improve our designs. We just need new techniques to do it. So that brings me on to the final part of this talk, which is, it's all about Agile product design, as Google call it. It's a Google Ventures Lab concept, or they probably stole it from someone else and made it better. But it's all about getting a startup involved and figuring out what they can make better about their own product, whether it's a certain feature or the general concept. There's a link there, so I'll share that out on Twitter later on, where you can see a video, and he kind of explains it a lot more succinctly than I can. But it's basically split up into these 5 days. It's really easy to do. You just need a team of people. And that team of people has to be made up of both internal people from, say, your agency, and indeed client stakeholders. You need to get everyone involved. So internally, you need to get a designer, a developer, project manager, CEO, if they've got the time to come along and provide ideas. And likewise, from the client as well, you need to get as many people over there involved. I mean, don't go overboard, you're not talking 20 people, but 5, 6, 7 people from various departments in their business. Obviously, if it's a startup, they can probably all come along. Slightly bigger clients, just pick a few people. It's all about getting ideas out. So you spend a whole day, it's a week-long process, you spend the whole day doing research into the company, into the product, into the users. That's all that one day is. On that one day, you book your user testing for the 5th day. So you've already booked all the users you're going to use on that 5th day. It gives you a time limit. You know that by that 5th day, you're going to have something for someone to test. So it really gets you going, so that you know that on the 4th day you're providing something for them. The 2nd day is all about idea generation. There's various ways to do this. It's all user experience, design type ways, so I won't go into that too much, but it's all about getting as many ideas out of the people you've got there as possible. So all those client people, all your internal people, no idea is a bad idea, get them all out on the table, explain them all, discuss them all, do it by yourself, do it in groups, and have a rest, because that's a pretty manic day, so you need to just chill out after that, go to the pub. Day 3 is then all about refining these ideas. All the ideas that you've come out with, there's going to be some favourites, there's going to be some that work and others that don't, so build the ones in that work. My slides have disappeared. So the Oscar speech, anyway. I was in a crap film. Where was I? Day 3. So day 3 is all about idea refinement. Take the great ideas, build them into something that feels a little bit more refined, a solid 2 to 3 ideas that you can maybe think about. Then on the 4th day, it's all about rapid prototyping. This is why I say get a developer involved, because they're the best at doing that. It doesn't have to be kind of like a HTML prototype. It can be paper prototyping. I can never say that word properly. But it's always best to have probably something that the user can click around. I think even Keynote and things like that can do really great prototypes. So spend the whole day doing that. Again, get everyone involved. Then on the 5th day, you've got your user testing. Your prototype's ready. You think it's a pretty decent idea. Get the users in front of it in the morning. Get fully user tested. And then in the afternoon, refine a little bit more. And the idea is that you kind of have what is close to the kind of perfect feature, the perfect product by the end of that week. It's pretty intense, and I've done it a couple of times, and 1 or 2 times it didn't work, 3 or 4 times it did. So it does work, it's a great process, but you have to be really friendly but strict with the people that are there. Ban phones, ban internet access, ban email, because it's all about ideas, not about replying to some email that doesn't really matter. What's great about it as well is it's really flexible. My clicker's broke as well. Can you go on to the next slide, please? Thanks. So yeah, it's really flexible. It doesn't have to be a week long. In a lot of instances, clients don't have a week to come over to your office and do this. They might have a day or 2 days, so this process can be cut down into hour long. Obviously, an hour for research, ideas, refinement, prototyping, and output. You might not get any user testing done by that stage, but at least you've gone through the process and you've got people thinking a different way. If they've got 2 days, split it up into 10 hours instead of 5. It also works as well for web development or design situations. I've used this to book a holiday with a load of lads, which, as you can imagine, is really difficult because people can't do certain things or go certain places, girlfriends stop them from going, certain dates, and if you get everyone into a room and say, right, 5 hours, and by the end of it we'll have a holiday booked, it's really good, so try it. What is really great about it is that you give equal time to each section, so research, user testing, ideas, and prototyping all have the equal amount of time. So you have to get through things quickly, but it's a good way of getting a lot done. It's also good because you can get various ideas from around the business, not just your agency or your business, but also from the client. As I said earlier, it's quite difficult sometimes in quick workshop meetings all sat around a boardroom to actually understand what they're trying to tell you. And in a lot of cases, they don't know themselves until they stand up and start writing on post-it notes and drawing things out. They don't know what they want either. And the potential, although still quite small, is that you'll have the perfect end product. You've gone through the process, you've gathered all the research, done all the ideas, and you've done some user testing. So the idea is that you have the perfect end product. If not, you can still roll into another week and do another week if you have time. Again, this comes with challenges, as everything does, but it does require the full participation of all stakeholders. And as I said, again, it's difficult. It's hard to get people to turn their phones off and to turn their email off and to just stay put in one room for like a week. That is really hard to do. And until you've done it, you won't realize how hard it is. But if you can explain to people the great outcome, then maybe they'll listen. And indeed, if they're hiring you to do it, then they should go with the process you want to go with anyway. At the end of it, you probably only have one prototype to work with. Although by the end of, the Wednesday, you might have a few ideas. To prototype all the ideas in one day will be quite hard. So you have to pick one. And it might not be the best one. So on the Friday, with the user testing, you might find that it's all wrong. And in that sense, you have to then push it into another sprint. And then again, all the challenges come back of getting stakeholder involvement. So it's not an easy process to just run through, but the outcome is really good. And it gets people thinking in a different way. And if you're working with clients or stakeholders, it's probably one of the best ways to get their ideas out from the head, because they've got a lot of other things to think about, not just what you're doing. And as James Archer said here, in the world of design, change is an everyday reality. So Agile is a very natural fit once you figure out how to make it work for you. So hopefully, with that little introduction to Agile, more designers will start working it and showing you that one process, and there are others. Don't get me wrong, I've tried them and some of them are okay. With that one process, hopefully you can take it on board and run with it in your next client meeting. And that's it, thank you.